Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and get started. And I know some other people will trickle in, and that's all good and dandy. Let's see. Before we begin, we want to acknowledge that the land that we stand on and the place that we call Cuyahoga County is land that was claimed by the United States government through force, displacement, and treaties negotiated in bad faith. We acknowledge those of the Shawnee, Miami, Erie, Ottawa, Potawatomi, and Haudenosaunee Confederacy, whose lands we stand on, and the thousands of Native Americans representing over 100 tribes who currently live in Northeast Ohio today. Thank you to the Lake Erie Native American Council for providing us the information to develop this acknowledgement. We also want to take a moment to lift up CAC's value of equity. We lead with racial equity in our work because the creation and perpetuation of racial inequalities is embedded into our government and grant making. We confront the white supremacy that resides in our work because racial inequities across all indicators of success are deep and pervasive. We also recognize the power and potential the organizations who produce arts and cultural programming have as bearers of culture. These institutions have the power to write the narrative about who belongs and who is valued. We encourage arts organizations to connect with resources to advance equity in your own work. Visit cacgrants.org/equity, or you can contact our team to learn more. CAC has a board of 5 individuals appointed by the county executive and a staff of 7. This slide introduces the grant-making team, and in particular, I'll introduce myself, Julia, and Davon, the grant managers. We each have a portfolio of about 100 organizations that we work with through the grant cycle. One of us is your grant manager. If you're not sure who your grant manager is, we have a PDF that lists that out, and we can share that with you at the end of this presentation. Your grant manager is here to help. We can help you find materials you need, for example, old applications or reports, offer guidance around completing requirements. We will surely be sending you reminders throughout the year, so you will see our name in your inbox, and can help make connections between organizations as well. So for today's workshop, we'll get started with grantee introductions, followed by sharing who CAC is and what we do. We'll talk about your 2024 CAC project support grant and requirements for grantees. And of course, we'll leave space at the end of today's workshop for questions. I also want to note that I know we mentioned that today's presentation is being recorded, and we'll be sharing the presentation and recording with you in a follow-up email, which will include resources that we share with you today. So I know that I'll mention some different resources, and I already have, and there will be links to that at the end of the presentation, and all of that will be shared with you via email. And now I'll turn it over to Julia to get us started with introductions.
All right, thank you. So we have held a little bit of time here for introductions. This is a good chance to see who your other colleagues in project support are. So there's about 50 people in the room right now, so not everyone needs to come off mute and introduce themselves, but if you're interested, please do. You can come off mute, introduce yourself and your organization and the CAC funded project that you're doing this year. You can also introduce yourself in the chat as well. So I'll pause here and see who wants to say hello.
Hi, apologies I can't come on camera, but my name is Leanna Ruig, and I'm the Community Engagement and Operations Manager for North Point Ballet. This is our first award from CAC, and we're really, really excited to be getting to work together for the upcoming year. Specifically, the project that we'll be working together on is our second weekend of Nutcracker performances that serve Cuyahoga County this coming December.
Hi, this is Doreen Thorne. Hopefully you can see me. I am the Foundations Relations Manager for Hospice of the Western Reserve. And we are supported through our healing arts workshops that are held throughout the year. So thank you for all your support.
And if I may, this is Linda Witkowski, and I am the president of an organization called Women in History. Our core competency is to bring forward the stories of impactful women in history. And for the most part, we are an in-person delivery system, if you will. We will research the stories, we will write presentations, we will costume them, we will present them. We recently, as many others have had to work off into the world of the digital that the pandemic put us all into, and we had to become literate with Zoom and how to present over Zoom. And now we're moving forward a little bit with trying to enhance our social media impact for the organization. womeninhistoryohio.com.
If I may, this is Antara, the president of Arts Without Borders. And I'm very excited. This is our second year that we have received the grant from Cuyahoga Art and Culture. We have a very exciting project planned for this year. So the mission of our organization is to bring Oriental and Western classical arts together and to find out in which ways we are complementary and in where we differ. We all speak the same language. We all speak in our different languages and we tell the same stories. So this year, we are doing a project on a Western classic, that is Cinderella, which is to be portrayed in a North Indian classical style, which is called Kathak, one of the dance forms coming from India. And I'm very excited to work on this project with Cuyahoga Art and Culture this year.
Do we have one more we'll do? One last person? Okay, well, maybe we'll call it at that. Thank you, everyone. It is so great to hear about how many different types of programs we have, so many different types of arts and culture represented. It's amazing how vibrant the Cuyahoga County arts landscape is. And, you know, hearing about all these project support projects just reminds me of that. So next, I will briefly introduce ourselves, Cuyahoga Arts and Culture. CAC is the public funder for arts and culture in Cuyahoga County and has invested more than $246 million in more than 486 organizations since 2006. Cuyahoga County residents created CAC in 2006 when they approved a tax on cigarettes to support arts and culture in our community. This levy was renewed in 2015 and now runs through 2027. So in 2024, this year, CAC is investing almost $11.3 million through grants to a record-breaking 300 organizations who are bringing arts and culture to life in our community. Our mission is to inspire and strengthen the community by investing in arts and culture. And to do that, of course, we make grants to 501c3 arts and culture organizations and projects in the county. And with that, I will hand it back to Maya, who's going to talk more about the project support program.
Thank you, Julia. So the purpose of Cuyahoga Arts and Culture's Project Support Grant Program is to promote public access and encourage the breadth of arts and cultural programming in our community by supporting Cuyahoga County-based projects. CAC-supported projects must be a specific, connected set of activities with a beginning and end sometime between January 1st and December 31st, 2024, taking place within Cuyahoga County. Projects must have explicit goals or objectives and a predetermined cost that does not equal the organization's total annual budget. Projects may be one-time events, such as a festival or exhibit, or a defined series of events, such as a roster of classes or a series of productions. Projects must be arts or cultural activities and have a public programming component. Open to the public doesn't mean that the project or program must be free. Just note that, I know sometimes people feel like they have to offer their programming for free, but that is not what is required here. Here at CAC, we define arts and culture as including, but not limited to, literature, theater, music, dance, ballet, painting, sculpture, photography, motion pictures, architecture, archaeology, history, natural history, or the natural sciences as defined in the Ohio Revised Code, Chapter 3381. The materials you submitted are what was approved based on these requirements. There are a few organizations who had minor issues, maybe your project dates extended the whole year, or the budgets didn't add up, and we pushed that through, but your grant manager will be in touch with you in this month to make sure that we clear up those items and that we have clarity around project dates and project budgets before you're moving forward. A few common project expenses that CAC grants cannot be used for are receptions, international travel, and activities outside of Cuyahoga County. Please review the project support guidelines and your grant agreement for complete requirements and restrictions. However, some common project expenses that are eligible to be covered by your CAC grant include administrative cost and logistics, such as permits, porta potties, etc., or expenses that support the production or implementation of the arts and cultural content. For example, you need permits to produce your event, so that would be an eligible expense. You don't need a bounce house at the event in order for the arts and cultural content to happen, so that would not be an eligible expense for CAC to cover. But again, please review your grant agreements for the full requirements. If you have questions about a cost for your project, please reach out to your grant manager. We're always here and happy to help. A complete list of funding restrictions can be found on page 13 of your 2024 project support guidelines, and that will also be linked at the end of this presentation, which we will share with you. So matching funds. Project support grants are matching grants. So grantees are required to secure additional income from other sources. This program requires a one-to-one cash match. The matching funds may come from any source. Sources of your matching funds can include, but are not limited to, foundation or government grants, private donations, ticket sales, or member dues. Matching funds may not include other funds from CAC. This includes any CAC co-funded grants. For project support grants over $5,000, the match must be cash. Other grants, donations, tickets, as I mentioned. For project support grants under $5,000, up to half of the match can be in-kind support. In-kind support should be listed in both your income and expense table. Expenses for all project support grants must be double the amount of your CAC grant. So if you have a grant and it's for $4,000, then your total expenses must equal at least $8,000. And so I really want to make sure everyone's really clear. The CAC grant can only be up to half of the total cost of the event. And now I will turn it over to Laura to review CAC crediting requirements.
Thanks, Maya. All CAC grantees are required to acknowledge CAC funding in their publicly funded arts and culture project. By sharing with audiences that your project was funded by the residents of Cuyahoga County through CAC, you're showing what public funding for the arts can do in real time. Your publicity for your grant is an important advocacy tool to help champion public funding. You can do this in many ways, so in your programs or website, via pre-show announcements, in your marketing emails, or on your venue or exhibit signage. All grant recipients are also required to post events on clevelandartsevents.com. A public programming component is a requirement to receive grant funding in project support. Posting to clevelandartsevents.com is your public notice to CAC that your event is happening and has an added benefit of reaching the residents of Cuyahoga County. This site is a managed events calendar of arts and culture events happening in the greater Cleveland area, and it's visited by thousands of Cuyahoga County residents each month, and is a great opportunity to reach a wider audience. By posting your events on this community calendar, you're not only meeting the terms of your grant agreement, but you are demonstrating public benefit and connecting with county residents. All CAC grantees have an organization page created for them, but feel free to reach out to me if you need any help with your account. Your project must be posted to the calendar at least 30 days in advance, and CAC also pulls from the calendar for our bi-monthly e-news, social posts, and media partnerships, so that's just another added benefit of using this resource. We have a handout that we'll share specifically on how to meet these two requirements that will be linked with the PowerPoint that we'll share at the end. And also on Wednesday, January 24th at noon, we, along with Assembly for the Arts, will be hosting a lunch and learn around how to use clevelandartsevents.com. So I strongly encourage everyone who hasn't used it before to participate, and I'll share that link as well in the chat.
Thanks, Laura. Okay, so now into reports for final reports and payments. We have advance payments. CAC grants are reimbursement grants. Funds are not automatically distributed at the start of the project. They are sent after the final report is submitted and approved. That said, grantees are able to request up to 60% of their grant as an advanced payment. Grantees must have matching funds for the portion being requested and must have their event posted on CAE.com before requesting advance payment. If your project is starting soon or has already started, the advance payment request forms will be available by early next week at the latest. And you will access that by going on to the same portal that you used for your application. All of the reporting, everything that you do to submit with us is all through that same portal. Your final reports will be available for review and completion by the end of January. We suggest organizations look at this report ahead of your project so you can know what information to collect and record throughout your project. For example, the location report. It's important that you keep track of where your programming is taking place in the county. For some of you, that might be one simple location. I know some people have multiple locations that their projects are happening at. So we just request that you keep a record of exactly where programming is occurring. The final report is due no later than 30 days after your project is completed. This is an update from previous years. I know in the past that it was longer, so just noting for those of you who are longtime project support people, it is 30 days after your project is complete. Your report and all support materials must be completed online and submitted online. Project support grantees under 5,000 have the option of participating in our virtual report out in lieu of a written report. Upon review and approval of the final report, the remaining grant funds will be released. And had to meet the reporting requirements by tracking information, as we mentioned. Your final report will ask for location report, numbers of artists, volunteers, and audience members that were engaged in the project, documentation of the activities funded, such as publicity materials, photographs or videos, and a sample of how you credited Cuyahoga Arts and Culture. So those are just good things to keep in mind as you're going. Maybe just save them on your desktop. It's always really great to have documentation of what projects you did, whether that is photographs, which we always really enjoy and love to see, or videos of your work or anything else that can share the experience that you guys had. Oh my goodness, I feel like it jumped ahead. Okay, so some final miscellaneous items related to your project. The first is regarding changes to your project. The project outlined in your application was recommended by our panel and approved for funding by CAC's board. Funds from CAC may only be used to carry out that project. That said, CAC understands that parts of your project may change during your planning process. Maybe you had an idea of where it was going to happen, but you had to change locations. Any changes to a project must be documented and submitted to your program manager for approval in writing ahead of time. This might be things like the schedule of timing of your project, the budget, the scope of the public programming component, the arts and cultural content. Connecting with your program manager ahead of time ensures that there aren't any surprises at the year end that might disqualify your project from receiving funding. We're here to help, so please come to us with your questions or proposed changes. And please, again, that's easily just reach out to us via email and let us know. And if we have any questions or follow-up, we'll definitely get on the phone with you and talk through that. And lastly, as a reminder about the panel comments, only organizations that went through panel this year will have panel comments. About half the organizations this year opted to bypass the application and panel review by completing the same project as your 2023 project. You will not have panel comments this year. When you were notified that your grant was approved by our board, you were also provided with comments for those of you that went through the panel process. These comments are a great tool to see how your application tied to our funding criteria and for feedback from my diverse pool of arts and culture experts. We encourage you to look at the panel comments as you plan for your 2024 project or around for your next application. Panel comments can be found on CAC's website. And if you have any follow-up questions regarding panel comments, please feel free to schedule time with your grant manager. Great. And now I will leave time for questions. Are there any questions in the chat?
We have one in the chat. I think this is regarding reporting and the different types of reports. So it's when you mention a grant less than $5,000, is that the amount awarded from CAC or the total amount of the grant, including matching funds?
That's the grant, the amount of the grant awarded from CAC. So if your grant was 5,000 or less, you are able to do a virtual report out, and that's, again, your total expenses would be 2 times that, so it would be 10,000, but yes, the grant amount. Yes, Linda?
Yeah, when you talk about location reporting, and location was mentioned a couple of times, just to anticipate a question later down the line, because what we are working on is a series of videos, instructional videos on women's history to be put out on our social media. So yes, it will be available to all aspects of Cuyahoga County. It's also available to the rest of the planet. So I don't know that there's a way to localize, exactly where, other than to include that internet statement on there.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for bringing that up. If you are doing virtual programming like that, or there's a virtual offering and that's the main offering, you'll put your location for your office, your home-based office as the location. And then there is a box where you can check this was a virtual programming.
Okay. Our home base office is a PO box. We don't have any physical site, so.
That's
Is okay, or we can always use a residence, president's residence or something like that, if that's an issue.
whatever you use as your main address with us, with CAC
Okay.
is what you can list.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
I have a question as well.
Okay.
It's about how to list our events on the Cleveland Arts Events page. Our events they're not necessarily closed to the public, but we host them through our partner organizations, which are like Laura's Home and The Gathering Place, and it's been primarily for their like clientele. When we list it on Cleveland Arts Events, is there a way to list it so that it indicates, like when we go into Laura's Home, we're working with the residents of Laura's Home, and I'd have to ask those locations if folks who just saw it listed could attend, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Julia or Laura, do you want to chime in there?
Sure. Cleveland Arts Events is a public page, so anyone can see what's posted there. But we do often have groups that have programs that are aimed at pretty specific audiences, and they just aim to communicate that clearly in the event posting. For example, a program that's aimed at fourth graders who live in East Cleveland, like it wouldn't be appropriate for an adult to show up and try to participate in that program, and that's perfectly fine. And it's okay to post that type of event on Cleveland events. For a program that's aimed at, people who live in, participate in an even narrower program, I think that would be fine too, so that you can, maintain the be meeting the requirement. But if something isn't appropriate to post on there, like it's, for example, a workshop for people who live at a particular nursing home or something, it would be a good idea to try to post a public event that's related. For example, programs will often have a small exhibition at the end of the program, and that's a public event that would be appropriate for anyone to show up at. So that's probably what most groups who do things along these lines end up doing. So I'm not sure if that would be relevant for your work or not.
Okay, yeah, I think that makes sense. We can definitely list the like specific locations that we're going to like in the event descriptions.
Yeah, great.
Okay, thanks.
A couple of things. Sorry, go ahead, Julia.
No, you go ahead.
Okay, I was just going to say a couple things from the chat. So we had a question of where on the CAC website we can see the panel comments. So I dropped the link in there. You can also go to cacgrants.org/panel, and we can also include that link in the follow-up materials that you will receive. And then another question, if we have a grant under $5,000 and choose to do the virtual report out, does that also have to be within 30 days of completion? Sometimes this can be difficult with the schedule of the report outs.
Yeah, if you have, so I kind of was trying to change it up a little bit this year. I added an additional report out throughout the year so that there's 4. So we'll do quarterly for virtual report outs. I do know sometimes the timing can be a little bit tricky still with that. So if that is your option and that's what you would prefer, please still select that when you are going through the reporting system in SurveyMonkey Apply. And we will reach out to you directly if it's more convenient to just do a one-on-one with your grant manager. Anyone else? Oh, wow, you guys are still thinking. I'll note that we have a list of links, some of the things that we've mentioned, and some things that we will also just be helpful to you throughout the year. And that will be included with the presentation slides that you'll receive, which you should expect early next week. Well, we will hang on for a bit in case any other questions come up, but other than that, it was lovely to see everyone, and I hope you guys have a great day, and we look forward to hearing more about your projects throughout the year.
Just a really quick question. Y'all are sending this slide presentation with the live links out after this, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
There's a question in here from Philip. Do you have examples of model grant reports? We do have the instructions for the final report. You'll see they'll be linked in this presentation when we share it. They're on this page that we're looking at right now. But in terms of like a completed sample report, that's something, if you reach out, we can find one to send along to you. That would be fine. But I think looking at just the instructions will be pretty indicative of what type of data you should be holding on to and how much you should be collecting to be prepared for that. Thank you, everyone.